My name is Melnick, and I was born in Poland, in the city of Lodz. And I am a survivor of the Holocaust, and I'm my only remaining member of a Republic family. First, I want to thank you, all of you, for coming. And I want to tell you a few stories, what are in my book. When the war started, everything changed for me. No more school and no more friends and no more synagogue. Entirely a different life. One night we could hear steps on the staircase, and this was the German police who came in, arrested us, gave us 10 minutes time to grab some belongings and marched us to the police station. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Marched us to the police station, checked on us, took all the valuables away. This was me and my parents. They had a plan to resettle some national Germans to Germany, and Lodz, the city where I was born, was annexed to Germany. They marched us in February of 1940 to a concentration place, not a concentration camp, but a concentration place where they concentrate us to exchange for the national Germans. We end up in southern Poland, in the city of Nowy Sącz, where was a picture city surrounded by mountain, but we didn't see that beauty because of the German occupation. After a day when they had 1,000 people, they marched us through the city to the railroad station and loaded us in cars, were passenger cars, but they were with broken windows in winter in February of 1940. We end up in that city, Nowy Sącz, where we were received by the German administration and the Jewish community. Jewish community leaders and people behaved very nice to us, treated us very nice, and we became a part of that community. The chief of the Gestapo, an SS man, he was responsible for us, responsible for the whole city. He gave out orders, he sent us to work. His name was Heyman. Exactly the same spelling like the real Heyman. Now we were sent to work. I ended up at the railroad station how you say, at a German job for me because I was fed there and I got some food to take with me home for my parents. One day, going out to work, we were diverted, we Jews were diverted to the police Gestapo station. They had a list, and whoever was on the list, they didn't let him go. I wasn't from that town, I wasn't born there, I didn't grow up there. They let me go. So I went back, I went to work. All other ones were put in jail, and the next day they took all these people, a few hundred, probably 400 or 500, to the Jewish cemetery where there was a ready digged grave. They were all massacred. I could hear the shooting. I didn't see it, but I could hear it. The same night, in the middle of the night, we could hear shooting outside our apartments, and this was the Haman with his people, and whoever they approached, they shot. They didn't ask questions. Me and my parents, we used to live on an apartment on the last floor. It looked like an entrance to an attic. So they didn't come in. I stood beside the window and I was watching what they are doing. I could see them blowing the guns, screaming, "Ihr verfluchtes Volk," etc. And whoever they approached, they shoot probably close to 200 people. They didn't have enough. But later I heard that they did it. Haman had some private business with his deputy, Miller, and he shot him, but he remained alive. And he said that not the Jews, he wanted to claim the Jews, that the Jews shot him. Then there would be a bigger massacre. It didn't happen. In a few minutes when it got quiet, came running the women who came with us with the same transport to that town. She had 2 holes in her throat, one on one side and on the other side, and bleeding. My father grabbed a towel and put on her neck. Until the morning she was with us in our room. Next morning we sent her to the hospital. This was the end of the day. I used to work at the railroad, I said already, at the railroad station, and I liked the job. Townspeople didn't like it because they were still home, and they didn't like to work for nothing. I didn't have any other way. I had to make a living. Going out to work, we approached an assessment who wanted to arrest us, want to take us to the police station. But we talked him out of it. We told him to go to our boss, the German national, and he listened to us. And he said to us, our boss, don't worry, I am here. He had a big influence of the Gestapo, probably with bribes, with drinks, etc. In summer of 1942, coming back to the ghetto from work, I could see announcements on the walls that there will be a resettling of the Jews. We knew it can't be good. It said on an announcement like that, for some strategic reason, Jews can't be anymore here. They will be in camps, will be sent to camps where they will live and work. It didn't sound good. And my mother always told me that's no good. A few days before the resettling, approached me a high-ranking German officer who told me that he heard about the resettling and he would like us to remain in town and working for him. I told it to my parents. My mother said, it doesn't sound bad. If he comes, and if you can remain in town, maybe you will survive here and on place. So I agreed with it, but later came to my mind that every kind of, I didn't want to leave my parents by themselves. So at the day of the resettling, when we stood on a river bank between two bridges and guards with weapons, and Heyman was leading the whole comedy. I could see the high-ranking German officer arrived. He had written down my name and the other 5 boys. We were 6 boys, and I was first on the list, and he called me. The Heyman had the list, and he called my name. But I changed my mind. I wanted to go with my parents, so I didn't answer. Now, my mother looked at me, and he called again my name. And I didn't answer again. So my mother gave me a push with her hand that I flew out like to the other end of the room. I almost fell. They saw me already. I didn't have any other choice just to go when they saw me, and told me to you be standing here, and the other 6 boys. And here we had by my mother's hand. If not my mother, I wouldn't be here today. took us away. They chose from, there were 16,000 people standing. They chose 200, and all the rest, including my parents, were sent to a camp called Belzec, where 2 people survived. They are not alive already. I never could get in touch with them. This was the last time I saw my parents. I even didn't hear about that Camp Belzec until after the liberation. After a few days, they didn't let us go anymore to the railroad station to work. I worked then at the Air Force, German Air Force. They didn't let me go to the German Air Force anymore. We had to, they include us in the people, in the 200, and we had to clean out the ghettos. We had to carry out everything from the apartments, from the houses, and was a hard work. After we finished the cleaning out, we were arrested, surrounded again by police with weapons, 200 people. We were marched to the jail, city jail, where we were again searched for valuables. After a few days, after next day in the morning, they took us out in the city jail. The whole Gestapo with the leather coats. We knew when they wear the leather coats and carry a machine gun, is to finish us up. We knew if they marched us to the left, it's no good, it's to the cemetery. We were 200 people. But they marched us to the railroad station where there was a train waiting for us. And after a couple of days we arrived in a town bigger than that, where before the war there used to live 40,000 Jews. Now, when we came in, there were 4,000 people. We could go once a day to the kitchen for a little bit soup, and the rest we had to look after ourselves. We didn't go to work there. There were 2 ghettos. There was an A and a B. We were in a B ghetto, and we didn't work. In November, there were rumors about they wanted to open a new camp, and they need young men and young women for that camp. But nobody wanted to go to a camp in a ghetto. We could go over the fence, could go arrange some food, but in a camp where there are 12 feet barbed wire fences, you couldn't do it. So nobody wanted to go. We decided, me and my friend Moshe Bergman from the surrounding town, a smaller town he was, we decided to hide. And we were hiding in a a shed in the courtyard and sitting the whole night, and we got frozen. So we made up our mind to go back to our basement where we used to live. There was no heating either, but in the basement it's always cold, warmer than outside or in an unheated room. We went back, and 10 minutes later the police was there and arrested us, marched us to a little jail in a police station. When they had 100 people, they put us on trucks and drove us northeast of there, more to the demarcations line, to the border between Germany and Russia. We arrived in camp. The first good morning was with a whip on my head I got. Why? Because I didn't take off my hat in front of the assessment who received us. That camp was the last camp of the remaining Jews, to liquidate the remaining Jews. When I arrived there were 200 people already from Krakow, Plaszow, the camp where Schindler's List was made. There were 200 people. Now in that camp I saw every kind of murder, atrocities, hangings and shootings. And I was there until end of November. In November there were rumors that the camp will be liquidated. They choose 400 people. We were 4,500 people. And there was roll call. The special squads of the SS who liquidated Jews, Einsatzgruppen arrived, put machine guns on the roofs of our barracks to check us. And the Lagerführer, the Lager leader, the German Oberscharführer, stood up on a stool and talked to us. He said, "Who said we are going to kill you? That's not true. What he did before, many times. In my eyes I saw him killing." He said, "We are going to send you to another camp where everyone will have a bed." I didn't believe a word what he said. But you know, there came to my mind every kind of things. In the evening they started to take us out in groups of 50, march us from the camp to the railroad station. And when we arrived, my group, 50 people on a ramp, on a little railroad station, I saw what's going on. And better, he mentioned the Lagerführer that don't forget the blankets for the children so they won't be cold. There were still a few children. When we arrived on the ramp, they start to beat us with the butts of the guns and with whips and pushing and screaming to undress. I didn't have any other choice. I didn't want to suffer beating. So I undressed, had to put separate the shoes, separate the jacket and separate the coats, separate sweaters. I saw mountains of clothing. They pushed us in the cars, shut the doors, train started to roll. We didn't know where we are going, but slowly in a direction where we went, and people from that section of Poland knew that no other than Auschwitz. I heard about Auschwitz before. I heard that Auschwitz is not a good camp. You can survive a long time in Auschwitz. In Auschwitz you can survive a few weeks. We arrived in Auschwitz, the doors opened, we were chased out from the cars. We were set up in rows of 5, and going forward I could see a few rows before in front of me that they asked, "What are you? How old are you?" etc. And in some cases they didn't ask. My friend, Moshe Bergman, who we were friends for more than a year, we were sharing everything we had. Wasn't asked any questions and pointed to the left, and this was the last time I saw him. And why? Because one thing, he was wearing glasses. They didn't want people with glasses. When came my turn, and I stood in front of that assessment who pointed the finger, I didn't wait until he asked me. I told him that I'm an electromechanic and I'm 21 years old. He pointed to me to the right. I was lying, but I saved my life. Otherwise I wouldn't be standing here. Because all the people to the left went straight to the gas chambers and their body were burnt to ashes. This was my picture, me, my father, my brother, my sister. Now everybody asks or thinks probably, how did I Aviv, where I went to the army after the liberation. I went to friends of my parents who had the picture before they left for Palestine in the 1930s. This was me in 1945, a few months after the liberation. I am on the right side on the first row. It was on a Sunday afternoon, sorry, on Saturday. My mother wasn't on a picture because she was cooking dinner. Now, being in Auschwitz, I knew that I can't survive long because of hard labor, no food, so you couldn't survive too long. Being in Auschwitz, we were marched from the ramp in Auschwitz to Birkenau. Birkenau was the camp where the gas chambers were and the crematoriums, and that smell of the burning bodies was terrible. And everybody tried as fast he could to get rid of Birkenau to be sent away to another labor camp. After 6 weeks, I was selected to go to another camp. We arrived in another camp. The camp was just 6 kilometers away. What is 4 miles? This was a camp where we built what was buyer's subsidiary. And we were the 10,000 prisoners, just men. And I was there for close to a year. At the end of 1944, there was bombing of the factory and was 3 times bombed, and the last time was in December before New Year's, that it was impossible to rebuild already. Then the Russian front came closer. We could hear the big guns. And then we didn't get even a little bit warm water, because the power station in the factory was destroyed, and the power for the kitchen, in the kitchen used to use steam to cook, didn't get it. On the 17th of January 1945, there was again, Auschwitz was liquidated, and I was sent west to Germany in a march, in trains, with Elie Wiesel wrote about that night. There's a little book called The Night. I participated in that march. Some students asked me if I walked with Elie Wiesel. I told them no, Elie Wiesel walked with me. We arrived in Germany in a camp in Saxonia, in the Harz mountain, called Dora, like a woman's name Dora. This was an underground factory of rockets, where the Germans built rockets. Germans had the first in the world, the rockets. And this was a horrible camp. There was a self-administration, and by German criminals who were brought in from the jails, and you can imagine what kind of treatment we Jews had. We were the lowest from the lowest. The factory was underground. There is here one man who was there too. Yes. We were lucky, I was lucky, I worked inside. It was in the ground, in the mountain. If we would arrive there 1 year earlier in that camp, we wouldn't survive, because they had to dig the tunnels, and that was a special stone, special rocks, where you didn't have breathing protection. And people got tuberculosis and died. They let them die. On the 1st of April 1945, they took us out from that camp again on trains. And after a few days we arrived in a camp. Who heard about it, Bergen-Belsen. Bergen-Belsen was a camp where Anne Frank died 3 weeks before our arrival. And at our arrival, there were bodies, probably in the tens of thousands of bodies lying around, and nobody to bury them. The bodies were buried just after the end of the war by German soldiers. They were forced to do it. Now being a few days, a week in Bergen-Belsen, no food whatsoever, one of the boys standing beside the window started to scream that he could see a column of tanks going by the fence. We were watched by Hungarian soldiers, and they didn't let us out. When we came close to the fence, they chased us away, shooting in the air. At the same next morning came in maybe 20 of them, assessmen with their weapon, but this time with white armbands. White armbands, I couldn't in the beginning remember what it means, but later it came to my mind. I knew that white means surrender. And they were counting. So this, at the same time, came in a group of soldiers with 2 vehicles. I couldn't in the beginning know who they are, but I knew they are not Germans. This was the British military police. Came in and straight to the German SS, took their weapons away, put them on the vehicles, didn't let them touch. And drove off. You can imagine what was going on then. What kind of happiness. People were jumping, people were laughing, and people were crying. I didn't laugh, I didn't cry, but my heart cried for a long, long time. Thank you very much. If somebody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Henry?
What year were you born?
1922.
1922.
story.